Hello, welcome back to episode 11 of Idiot Wind. The truth is out there, and so have we been. My name's Sean Hewitt. I'm in a special confinement pen in Colorado, and my friend Sid Smith is in a special eco-pod beneath the sea at the Bay of Whitley Bay. We've been listening to Bob Dylan, and this week we've got a special treat for all big fans of Bob Dylan. It's Bob Dylan's 10th studio album. It's a double album, and it's called Self-Portrait. And this one has always been very popular with the fans. Right from day one, when it was released, the very famous rock journalist Greil Marcus, lovely picture on the back there, thank you, Sid. He opened his review in Rolling Stone magazine, a very long review, by saying in his opening sentence, "What is this shit?" And he was a big fan of Bob. And you might think, well, that sounds a bit harsh for a long-term fan to start his review with that. If you're saying that, I suggest you haven't heard Self-Portrait. Self-Portrait is an album which is described by one authority, and that authority is, his name's Bob Dylan. In his book, Chronicles, he's describing this period before Self-Portrait, when he literally is being besieged by fans. He's been expected to come up with the answer to every political problem in the country wherever he goes. Joan Baez is writing songs telling him to get out there and lead us, Bobby. And he's getting, it must be said, pretty cheesed off with it all. And he describes Nashville skyline. "Coming back, I quickly recorded what appeared to be a country western record and made sure it sounded pretty bridled and housebroken." Lovely phrase. "The music press didn't know what to make of it. I used a different voice too. People scratch their heads." And he then goes, "I released one album, a double one." I think we know which album he's referring to. Self-Portrait is a double album, where I just threw everything I could think of at the wall, and whatever stuck, released it, and then went back and scooped up everything that didn't stick and released that too. So that's a big double thumbs up there from Bob for this album. You once described Bob to me, Sid, as an escape artist who, we went from the folk artist to the electric artist, then changed consistently after that. And I think he's being an escape artist on this album, Self-Portrait, but he's trying to escape from being Bob Dylan completely. Yeah. I think he's trying to, as he puts it elsewhere, he's trying to make an ordinary record, one that the Elvis Presley of this era or the Everly Brothers might release. And it's full of cover versions. It's full of bizarre moments. It's full of a few Dylan originals. And it does sound professional, it sounds competent, it sounds pleasant, but I think overall, the problem is, for most of its length, it could be anybody. And when you buy a Bob Dylan record, previous to Self-Portrait, I don't think you buy a record that could have been made by just about anyone trying to make a middle-of-the-road, easy-listening album. Anyway, Self-Portrait galvanized Dylan. We've already done New Morning, but New Morning he made very quickly after this, realizing he'd perhaps gone too far with an attempt to dismantle Bob. But I've heard many attempts over the years to reclaim this album. None of them convinced me. One of the most persuasive arguments is that this is the first example of what, say, Brian Ferry was trying to do with his early solo albums of other people's songs. And it could be said it is a precursor to that. And Brian Ferry, indeed, is an enormous fan of Bob Dylan and has recorded countless Bob Dylan songs. So I kind of say that, but as an artistic statement, which has also been claimed, and a conceptual album, I think that's bullshit. I think this is an album by someone who thinks he's got to make a record, but isn't really interested in putting himself between the grooves. One of the main attempts to reclaim this album in 2013 was this, and this is another Dylan Self-Portrait, and the album is called Another Self-Portrait. This is a bootleg series, 4 CD set. And you can get to the really interesting part of this as a 2 CD set. So, and that includes 35 outtakes, demos, and stripped back and alternate versions of songs from Self-Portrait, Nashville Skyline, and New Morning. And there's about 17 versions of the songs or tracks recorded in the sessions of Self-Portrait on this. There's some astonishing stuff on this that is a lot better than this on this album, but that's the familiar problem. It doesn't reclaim it for me, although I will say the first 2 CDs of this set are better and more entertaining than the 2 records in Self-Portrait. One amusing thing is there's 2 books in this. One of them features a long article by Greil Marcus, the man who wrote What Is This Shit as his intro, which I think is one of the most amusing choices by the Dylan organisation. Let's get him to write the notes about how good this album is. And he still doesn't sound completely convinced, has to be said, but full marks to everyone for getting him to write the article. This also includes the complete Isle of Wight concert, for which there's several tracks on Self-Portrait, and an exclusive remaster of the album. This means I've now got 3 copies of this bloody disaster. Anyway, what did you think of it, Sid?
Okay. I'd not heard the album before bringing it home from the newsagents. So I didn't have really any major preconceptions about it. I think, I mean, I knew about the Greil Marcus quote, mostly because you told me about it, and of course it's one of those little famous snippets that you see pop up in magazines and so on. Do you know what? I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, I think it's a masterpiece. I disagree.
For a second there, I thought you were.
But I will say this: it's actually, you know, bearing in mind where I'm coming from, and just in case, you know, somebody stumbling across this on the internet may not know where I'm coming from, so I'll just very quickly say I'm a Bob Dylan skeptic. I'm not, you know, I like bits of it, but I'm not a huge fan. So for me, hearing this stuff, I actually thought it was I thought it was an entertaining listen. It's got a ridiculous amount of variation on it. It's got a lot of material on it, which is, you know, kind of variable, I would say, in quality. But also there are some fine moments on it. You know, from that weird opening track. All those fine horses, is it called?
All those tired horses.
Tired horses. There we are. You know, so the various sort of Nashville songs, and the one thing that surprised me was a cover of The Boxer by Paul Simon.
Yeah, so it certainly surprised me.
Yeah, with some great harmonising on that track.
I know he's obviously spent quite a bit of time on that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, the general. I mean, there's too much of it for sure.
Definitely.
But actually, it's an okay listen for me. It doesn't have any of the dirge-like qualities that I you know, feel have problems with Dylan. The whole Nashville period. I don't know where Nashville Skyline fits into this album, into this chronology, but all of that period, I actually find it very entertaining, far more than I'm probably supposed to. And that's not me just sort of wanting to have a perverse hot take, because I don't really have any hot takes on Dylan. But all I would say is I put the album on and I went through all 4 sides of it without any sort of sense of impending dread, which is often how I feel when I turn over one Bob Dylan album and put the other side on. You know, it's accompanied, as the needle drops, so does my will to live. But you know, it's a good. Is it a classic Bob Dylan album? Am I saying that? No, it's not. But I don't think it's half as bad. I mean, it's only half as bad if you're if you're a member of the Bob Dylan is our savior cult, which so many people historically were, and I understand why they were. And of course, you know, there's the latter day cultists like yourself. But
Thank you.
But I think overall it's not a bad album in and of itself. I can see why it's an aberration in the Dylan catalogue, for sure. I understand everything you very elegantly said before that. But you know what? Some of it put a smile on my face. Some of it, you know, I tapped me toe to, and it wasn't an unpleasant way to spend, you know, 15 minutes aside or whatever, however long each one is. So I'm not going to give it a massive thumbs up, but I'm also not going to damn it too much either. So there we
Okay. Well, I think there are highlights on this, and I'll just there's a few, very few. I think All the Tired Horses at the start is very unusual. That's the most unusual start to a Dylan album we've heard so far, I think, isn't it? I mean, because he doesn't seem to appear on it, and it's just the backing singers, and he's written that, and of course it's got that terrible pun, which is all the tired horses in the sun. How am I going to get some riding done? Which is deliberately made to sound like writing, and he's actually telling you, isn't he? Yeah. I've not done much fucking writing for this. That
whole business about trying to get away from being Bob Dylan, as an essay into that world, you can definitely see where this album comes from. I mean, it's possibly, you know, a bit cynical, but at that time, anything with Bob Dylan's name on will sell. So, you know.
Oh yes, it sold enormously, this album.
Of course, yeah.
I also like the version of Copper Kettle. I think that's a lovely version of Copper Kettle, and I really like the instrumental Wigwam, which is the second to last track, which ends up in the Big Lebowski. That's on the soundtrack of the Big Lebowski, and I think it is unusual. I think that's a genuinely unusual track that you wouldn't find that anything like that on any other Bob Dylan album. But too much of it is full of stuff like Woogie Boogie, which is just a bit of nonsense, isn't it? I mean, oh yeah, guys, you play that.
It's one of one of the great
one of his masterpieces, Sid Smith. I think his version of The Boxer is hysterically funny, actually. He does change one word of the lyric and improves it. Yeah, but that's great. Michael Gray goes into great play in the Bob Dylan Encyclopedia about he changes one word of the lyric and improves it. That might be true, Michael. Unfortunately, to find that out, you've got to listen to him sing the bugger. And I think this version is absolutely hysterically inept. And one reason that there's loads of theories about this. There's a theory that The Boxer by Paul Simon is actually about Bob Dylan. So he could be doing a bit of commentary there. I don't know. I suspect he's just doing a really crap version. I also think there's several live tracks from the Isle of Wight concert on this, of his old songs. I don't think they're particularly good. I don't think they're particularly brilliant versions. They're perfectly, like the album, they're perfectly competent, but they seem to pale in comparison to what we've had before. You know, if you hear some of the live versions he was doing in '66 of, for example, on here, Like a Rolling Stone, they just lay waste to this version.
They're there though, surely as a God. I'm sounding like one of the Kool-Aid drinkers here, but they're included on there. I think partly my interpretation was they're there as a kind of a way of because they do that thing of I'm sure that applause is bussed in because it doesn't. The balance of the applause sounds all wrong. It sounds like it's just bussed in there. I dare say when he started singing those songs live, people were cheering, but the way the applause appears, it's kind of like a Las Vegas kind of thank you very much kind of appearance. It's showbiz and it's shtick, and so that seems to me to be entirely deliberate. Again, I mean, I think this is one of the problems with Bob Dylan. Every single angle around whatever he does. If he gets a word wrong, I mean, my interpretation of the word he gets wrong on the Boxer is just because he fucked the lyric. You know, he just sang it wrong. You know,
although there's a case to be made, he does tighten the lyric by changing that one word.
And
sorry,
what's the one word?
It's this is, I knew you do that, and I meant to look at this. It's I think I might be wrong here, and readers will write in their millions. I think Paul Simon uses the word glove in the box, every glove that's laid him down, and Dylan sings hand, and the reason he sings hand is, of course, he's read that lyric and he realizes the song isn't just about him losing in the boxing ring, it's about him losing in life. And if you use the word glove, it implies that it's just the boxing that's done him in. And Dylan has changed it to hand because that implies life itself has laid him down low. And I think that's
I always thought that Simon's lyric there, the use of the word glove, had an image of the character's mother wearing gloves and being handled with kid gloves, and every glove that laid him down, literally picked him up and laid him down.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
You see, you can make up any old shit about lyrics, and if you say it convincingly enough and seriously enough, people believe you. But yeah, I mean, I think in broad terms, it's I think the word you were looking for in relation to that cover version was risible.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a disaster.
Yeah,
I think it's music. You know, it might be true he changed that word, full marks Bob, but his version of the song on the record is a fiasco. and I'd like to be able to have the confidence to say, maybe that's deliberate because he doesn't like being written about, even. But also it could just be he's done a shit job on that song, and I'm willing to see it either way on that one, because I when I first heard that, I thought, oh, for fuck's sake.
I broadly speaking,
because I do think, by the way, the Boxer is a brilliant song.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say we haven't mentioned it, but I know the cover, the cover sort of gets a bit of stick from time to time. But again, I remember seeing this like being advertised at the time. So this was, when was this released? 1970?
This album was released in 1969, I think.
69, okay.
I'll just double check that for you.
Well, I should really do some kind of preparation before.
No, you're correct. It's 1970. Sorry.
Right, okay, well.
This is in fact the next album after Nashville Skyline, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. I really love this image. I'm not saying that to be perverse. I just think there's something. I love the energy of this painting.
Yeah.
And I know he knocked it off in 5 minutes, and that's fine. But I really there's something brutal about it. And you know, you can interpret it in a million different ways. But here's a head who is close up, and he's you know, I mean, you can interpret that in any number of ways, as I say, but I just see it at face value. I think it's just I love the daubing of it, and I love the kind of rough lines of it, and the mouth. I'm fascinated by the mouth. I think the mouth is an interesting sort of thing. But great cover. You could have easily gone with that, and I also think that's a great cover as well. It could have, you know, but going with this feels quite a bold statement. And again, I don't know at this point in his career, I don't know how much control he had over the artwork, but I'm guessing quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot, I think, at this stage.
You could have gone with that, and that would have been a great cover as well. So much so, it reminds me of Van Morrison's Tupelo Honey.
Oh yeah, that is a striking resemblance. Yeah.
It's sort of a similar kind of vibe, isn't it?
Very much so. And they're both living in very similar part of the world at this time.
Well, they
aren't
are. They are. They are. Yeah. So it's a very bucolic kind of back to roots.
What year did that album come out?
I think it's 71. I think. Oh no, sorry, 72. 72.
Oh yeah. That's a very good album as well, isn't it?
Tupelo Honey's great. It's a really good run for Van Morrison from that period. So there we are, and of course the inner sort of stuff. I love some of those pictures in.
I know that's not someone who's trying to present himself as a prophet or a savior, is it? I love the picture of him on his knees, adopting the same position as the chicken. It's just a great photo of Bob.
So what's the winding up? What's the one track that you'd pick from this? Presumably not the Boxer.
No, it won't be the Boxer. That will be my worst track, I think, because it's a song I genuinely love and one's then genuinely interested. Oh, Bob Dylan's done the Boxer. I must hear that. Then you put it on and you think, I never want to hear that ever again as long as I live. And anyway, but I think there's some interesting and pleasant songs on this. And there's also a lot of chaff. I mean, I don't want to really hear him do.
So I'm going to press you on it. What's the one track you pick from it?
Wigwam.
Okay.
Wigwam. I just think it's so unusual, and I really like the atmosphere of it.
My favorite track. There were 2 or 3 tracks from this album I could happily live with on this depressingly long Bob Dylan playlist that we've compiled. But I loved "Let It Be Me." I thought that was a great.
Oh, did you?
I do, and I love that song. There's something about there's a maudlin quality to that song which really speaks to me, and I love his version of it. But the track that really does put a smile on my face, and it's as derivative as hell, but that's fine. Is "Living the Blues." I love it.
Really?
Yeah, I do. And I'm not doing it ironically or whatever. I genuinely like it. I warm to it. It's a sort of I love the backing vocals on it. It's pastiche and it's calling back to a kind of a Nashville rootsy kind of thing. You can imagine it coming off the radio in 1942, etc., etc. So I'm assuming he wrote it, but I haven't actually double checked. But
I will check that for you
because I know there's quite a few cover versions like "Let It Be Me" and so on. But from the same writing team, there's 2 tracks by those people who wrote that song, or at least one of them was shared in it. But anyway, regardless.
Hang on, I'll tell you.
Oh, no,
yeah, fine. That's credited to Bob Dylan, yes.
Yeah. So it's for me, "Living the Blues." It's one of those jolly blues songs. Woke up this morning, I've got the blues. Well, hey, it's good stuff. Very entertaining. What's next in this series? Because the timelines are really screwed by this, aren't they?
Yes. In chronologically, the next album is New Morning, but our next album, in episode 12, will be the soundtrack to Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Okay. And if you think I'm dismissive of Self-Portrait, just wait until you hear what I've got to say about that.